This is a hack that I've been recommending to literally all of my friends, and about half of them have done it and they've said, oh my God, this was game changing. And it's gonna sound weird, but that is to do a DEXA scan. And a DEXA scan is basically a full body x-ray. And in hospitals, we use DEXA scans to measure the bone density of patients who might be having osteoporosis. But the really cool thing about a DEXA scan is that it can tell you how much muscle you have and also how much fat you have, and also the distribution of the muscle and the fat around your body. First thing to say is that they are somewhat expensive. Well, you know, it's about $120 to get a DEXA scan depending on where you go. I personally think that it's absolutely worth it because any amount of money you can spend on your health, if it changes your behavior, will pay dividends further down the line. But every single person that I've recommended a DEXA scan to who has done the DEXA scan has been like, oh my God, this is the best money I have ever spent on my health. Because within like 15 minutes, the scan will tell you where your body fat is. And you might think that you're pretty skinny, like I thought I was like in reasonable shape, but then turns out I was actually 25% body fat, and most of it was in the abdomen. It was in the visceral adipose tissue, and it's the visceral adipose tissue that's most highly correlated with cardiovascular disease and strokes and like diabetes and all of the bad things that can happen later in life. And so since doing that first scan about 1.5 years ago, I've now been doing DEXA scans about every 6 months, and it's been an amazing way of actually tracking my progress in the gym, tracking my progress with weight loss, and seeing how the numbers are changing over time. And yeah, you could use scales and you could use those body fat scales that you get in the gym, but those are never really accurate. So after my first DEXA scan, I realized I had all this adipose tissue, and so we made a plan to lose some weight. But then 6 months later, I found I did lose a lot of weight, but most of it was muscle because I didn't have enough protein and because I didn't work out enough. And then I was like, oh my God, like, okay, I can literally see that I've lost about 2 kg of muscle and only 1 kg of fat. That's kind of annoying. And then we made a plan based on that DEXA scan, and then 6 months later, I'd gained 1.5 kg of muscle and lost 1.5 kg of fat, which was very nice. And for me personally, I love the fact that I have access to these numbers, and I love the fact that the numbers don't lie. And just doing a DEXA scan every 6 months has been the single most worthwhile expense I've ever made for my health.